it's not how good you are, it's how good your team is, right? Because at the end of the day, at some point you're going to hit capacity, and capacity could be, you hit 7 figures. It's like, hey, it's me, and that's as much as I can do. And I'm working 80 hours a week. And the only way that growth happens is through the team, right? So what was that like for you? I mean, you understand. Welcome back to the Success Unleashed podcast. Today, we got another special guest, Josh Carryon with Legacy Roofing. Now, as you guys know, I like to bring people on this show that have experience as contractors, but what you've noticed is everybody has a little bit different of an experience. And today we're going to learn more about Josh and his story. But I also want you to pay attention to one thing, and that is, what does it take to succeed in business and in life? Right? You'll notice an underlying theme. We're going to talk about some crazy things like Tesla roofs, but inside of this whole thing, there's a theme, right? And I want you to pay attention to that theme, because at the end of the day, do I want you to listen? Yes. Do I want you to like? Yes. But what I really want you to do is take what you learn and apply it to your business. Now, Josh has been in business for 6 years as a roofer. Again, started with mostly residential roofing. And then in 2020, got into solar, almost stumbled into it, which we'll talk about a little bit. But he's generating around 10 to 12 million. I think that's where you'll end up this year, a year. So he's got a pretty successful operation. But the question is, how did he get there, right? And we're going to dive into that. So Josh, I appreciate you making some time today to be on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. A lot of contractors get into the business one of two ways. They were either born into it, somebody in their family did it or is doing it, or they needed a job, and so they went and got a job, and they're like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I think I can do it on my own. What's your story? How did you get into roofing?
Oh, man. Roofing is, it's a necessary trade. It's got to be done. If your roof is leaking, it's not something that you can put off. And so with it being so essential, and especially even through COVID, we thrived. But with it being so essential, there's always, you always have work. Always have work. There's got to be waterproofing done. And so most of my career was in sales, and you can move products or you can offer things to people that they need. But when you have a trade, that's a totally different story. So combining sales with roofing, I always have business. I always have a way to be able to feed my family and make income.
Yeah, makes sense. How did you decide on a roofing company? So you come from a sales background, which is huge in the trades, because most of these guys are really good at the trade, and then the selling part, not so much. But how did you decide on roofing?
Oh, my brother started working for a roofing company as an estimator, and I was doing business loans at the time, and he just kept telling me, man, you got to come and join this company. You got to jump on board. And so I went and met the owner and started. That was 2016, and was there for about a year and a half. And just, I love process. I love putting things in order and making sure that things are done along a certain process. And I wasn't getting that at that company. And so I realized I had to do it for myself.
I like that. Well, I told you at the beginning, we're going to kind of see where the conversation goes. You brought up a really interesting point, right? And I deal with contractors day in and day out. And the biggest issue is not the desire to succeed. It's not the skill set. It's the ability to implement what you just said, which is systems and processes, right? People don't stumble their way to an 8-figure business. They'd like to think that they do, but they don't, right? It requires some type of organization. And I kind of had a feeling we were going to go this route with you. Talk about, we're not going to name the company, but talk about like, what were your actual frustrations when it came to the organization of the business?
Roofing is generally a subcontracted business. Mm-hmm. And so you have somebody who sells the roof, and then you have a different company who installs the roof. 99% of contractors. We go to GAF Wealth Builder conferences. This year it's in, 2025 is in Salt Lake. They do them across the country. We've been to California, Texas. Anyway, so these roofers are subcontracted businesses. And I believe that if you have a single trade business, I don't think that you should be subcontracting your single trade. If you're an HVAC company, you shouldn't have subs who are HVAC, in my opinion. And so as a roofer, if I'm your roofer, then the guys that work on your home when we offer the job are employees of the company. They're all W-2. They've got benefits, 401k, medical, dental, like they're actually here working as a part of the company. They're not subs. And so what I experienced was I would sell a job to you, and shake your hand and hope things go well. And then some sub unknown would show up and do who knows what. And it was a real letdown for not only my customers, but for me. I would get calls in the middle of jobs and they're wondering where the guys are at or what's going on or if they're going to be coming back, and just hectic things going on in roofing. And so I couldn't face that kind of pain. And the way that you deal with that is you make sure that people are dedicated, their heart's in it, and that they have a process to follow.
That's interesting, because I know a lot of people in the roofing space, and it's exactly what you said. 95+% are subbing out, the install part of that. What do you think led to your success? Do you think that it's because your people are your people and that gives you that much more investment in the project?
Yes. Yeah, I would say that. Our core culture is, I love Jesus first. I love God. I put my men before myself. I love them as myself. And if I can provide for them a way for them to provide for their families, enabling men and women to, and they're empowered to be able to make a life for themselves and support their families through our efforts, it's amazing. It comes together and everybody has the same heart, the same belief, the same direction. We're all headed towards service. And if we can serve, money's going to come, no problem, But if we're there to serve and we have a culture of, I'll fill in where you're weak and you fill in where I'm weak, and we take each other and we all rise together. It's so much different than just having a livelihood in a business. It's oh my gosh, it's a machine, man. It's real.
I love it. Yeah. It's that concept of everybody wins together, right? It's like, how do you build a business where, the most important people, and I talk about this all the time, and so many people don't understand it. It's not how good you are, it's how good your team is, right? Because at the end of the day, at some point you're going to hit capacity, and capacity could be, you hit 7 figures. It's like, hey, it's me, and that's as much as I can do. And I'm working 80 hours a week. And the only way that growth happens is through the team. Right? So what was that like for you? I mean, you understood systems and processes. You understood organization. You understood that you wanted your people to be your people and build that integral relationship with your clients. What was that process like for you? You jumped ship. You said, I got to do this on my own. What was that like?
Oh, a lot of planning. I took what was painful to me and made sure that I had someone in place that could handle the contacts or the follow-up or, checking on construction, different things. And, if I would get a call that my men weren't there, I needed to have somebody in charge of the scheduling and make sure that they knew where they were. So if I get that call, I'm able to look at our system, or we use Job Nimbus for software. I'm able to look at that at any point in time, and back-ended with Company Cam, I can see photos of the property. I can see exactly what it looked like before, during, and after. I know exactly where the guys are at. We've got everybody on a map. I mean, it's very, very visible. There's a lot of visibility and transparency, and it just makes things run really smoothly.
What was it like, those starting out?
Well,
because I know that's where you're at now, right? And everybody's like, oh, that sounds so cool, right? But it takes time to get there. What was it like starting out?
So we worked with a lot of solar companies originally, and we had solar reps that would send business to us because they needed a roof when they got solar. But when we sold a job, there had to be somebody to come and follow up. I needed a customer service rep and I needed an operations guy. And so I knew that I could bring in the sales, but if I had customer service to go after me, to go and look at the property, talk to the homeowner, give them a point of contact, make sure that they know exactly what's going to happen. And then they get that information, buddy checks, into the operations manager. Operations is scheduling materials and crews. And so they keep in contact with customer service, who keeps in contact with the customer. And when it closes out, customer service comes back, collects the job, and finalizes the detail, like closes it out. So starting out was, I started out with 2 guys, one customer service manager, one operations manager, and myself. And I just started selling jobs, and customer service followed after me, and operations followed after him, and it really took off from there.
Would you say customer service was kind of like a project manager? Or what would you equate that customer service position to?
Yeah, it was project management and also customer contact.
Okay.
So, I mean, a project manager, a lot of companies do have project managers where they'll manage 2 or 3 different crews. In my company, that's a quality manager. And so we have a quality manager. I mean, my guy's 20 years on the roof, and I pulled him off and said, okay, you're going to go inspect jobs and help the guys understand. And so there's the quality manager, different from customer service. Customer service was filling that kind of role. And so I have 2 customer service reps, and they take care of all of the customers who come through the door. The quality manager manages the crews and keeps in contact with operations and customer service. And so it's a really cohesive system.
Yeah, I like that. Now, I work with a lot of roofers. I have a conversation with a lot of roofers, here locally and nationally as well. And I think one of the biggest issues that they have is letting go, right? Because they normally start off with like, hey, I'm on a crew, or I'm a PM for a crew, and I'm like, hey, I can do this on my own. So they start off on their own, and their first inkling is to go with a subcontracted crew, right? Versus build that internal team. Now, if we're talking and I know we're saying roofing, but it's really any trade, right? But if we're talking a guy who's at that point where he's got to make that decision, internal or external, what would your advice be to him?
Well, I would say that if you have a good subcontractor that doesn't work for other companies, and they are just, you're good friends with them, you know them, and they work for you, I think that can be a good relationship. And so I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to have subs, but if that's your only trade, you really should have your own workmen. But no, if you have a really good sub or a good foreman, and you know the men on the team, and you know exactly how they're going to perform, and they do it day in and day out with you, there are some good models that work that way. And I have good friends within the roofing industry who do that. But I would say if you do step out on your own, go 100%, close the back door, don't give any other option. That's the only thing that you're going to do. Not, well, maybe I could fall back on this or fall back on that. Like I said earlier, falling back on roofing, you can always do roofing, right? And so if you do step out on your own, make sure that you have somebody who's very, very good, that you understand and that you work with well in roofing, if you're not the roofer, because at some point you've got to get off the roof. You have to start managing and running the business, and you've got to be able to trust the people that are still on the roof, and they've got to trust you as well with their livelihood and their income. And so if you are stepping out on your own, I would say absolutely do it. There are more than 1,000 roofing companies in Utah, but find a very good subcontractor and then start talking with them, because we started with subs too, and I didn't like the results. And so, I mean, it's hard to be able to get people that are on the same page with you. And you sift through a lot of people. I wouldn't say hang your hat on one person or one crew. Make sure that your mission doesn't get affected by the people that are around you. And if there are people around you that are pulling away from your mission, you need to eliminate those people from your business. You got to be assertive and move forward. But find a good relationship with a good person who understands roofing or understands the trade you're going into, and make sure that you've got somebody that you can really rely on to be able to do the right details, and then just confidently sell, 100% confident.
I like it. Now, question, very direct question. First hire, most important first hire, internal. What do you think that is?
Most important. I would say you got to have a good bookkeeper or a good CFO, somebody that handles the books. A lot of us entrepreneurs are very creative, but not very, I'm not going to balance a number sheet, And so you have to have somebody who's good at balancing number sheets and knows what to do with that money once it comes in, so that it's organized and it's structured and it goes to where it needs to go. I'm not paying bills. I'm not at my computer, issuing bank checks and things like that. I have a really good CFO, happens to be my wife, and she jumped on board after my first bookkeeper was doing okay. And she's like, no, you've got to have an in-house bookkeeper. So I'd say that's the first most important hire.
So you would say above in your terms, a customer service manager or a project manager then?
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Because you can do those things until you get big enough to where you can't.
Okay.
So you fill those roles and you take care of, because you know how your business should run.
Yeah.
But once the bank account starts filling and then bills are due, you've got to have somebody to be able to organize that and put it where it needs to go.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, it was definitely not me.
I think for most contractors, it's that way, right? We do a lot with behavior profiling, and it's interesting to see, you know, business owners or contractors in general have a certain profile, and that profile is really heavy into people. It's really heavy into the ability to sell. It's not super detail oriented, right? So I tell people, I'm like, this is a really easy way to say, am I good at books? If I put you in a room with no windows and told you to type on a computer all day, would you be happy? 99% of the time, what's the answer?
No way.
Nope, no way. I need to be out, right? But that tells you what you need to know. That means you need somebody that is really good and comfortable with doing that kind of stuff.
For sure.
So I like that. All right. You get started. You hire 2 people out the gate, which I think is amazing. What was your first big hiccup as you were growing?
My first big hiccup. So when I started, I had a business partner. We were 50-50.
Okay.
And we both sold for the same company, and we were neck and neck all year long. And it was really good, friendly competition. And so when I started the business, we started as partners. And about 2 weeks in, I'm talking about opening an office and hiring direct and payroll, wages. And he said, well, I want to sub. I just want to sell out of my house. I don't really want an office. I don't really want a big operation. And from the start, I wanted this to be the biggest operation in Utah. I mean, looking at franchising, right? And so from the start, we had differing views. And so the business model that I put together, you asked about preparation. I have a spreadsheet that has about 25 different operational layouts of how installers are paid, how estimators are paid, how trucks are acquired, and how financing is done and leasing, like all of these different things that we set up before we started the company, and had to put all of that in place. And I think through putting all of that in place, I think he kind of got cold feet about a large operation. And he, you know, we were 2 weeks in and he said, you know, sorry, bro, I want my money back. I want to get out. So I mortgaged my house. I mean, took a HELOC and paid him back his initial investment, and was like, oh my gosh, it's all on me. I built this thing around having 2 ideal estimators that could produce what I could produce. And then all of a sudden it was on my shoulders, and I had customer service and operations both on payroll, wages that were making money no matter if we made sales or not. So about 2 weeks in, I felt like I looked at the books. I'm like, oh my gosh, in 3 weeks we're done. We're going to be out of business unless we can actually make this thing work. And so I pulled on customer service, and I pulled on operations. Both guys went out and started doing estimation, and just really it came through, man. It was God's hand. That's one of the miracles I've seen happen in this, man, is that there is no way we should have been able to get past that kind of a detriment. And everything that I thought at the time about the trajectory of the business was gone at that point. I had half the production, half the sales that I needed for the planning and everything that we had done. So, but yeah, it was pretty interesting, man. More solar companies jumped on board. And you know, it was funny because the jobs that he left on the books made up for quite a bit of what he actually invested in the company in the first place. And so, you know, just the view and vision of where you could be as a company, it's got to be aligned. If you have a partner, it's got to be aligned in where you want to go. Yeah,
I love that. How long did it take you to go from, we're kind of up a creek right now, we got to figure this thing out, like I'm literally all in, like mortgage the house and everything. How long did it take you to get to a point where you're like, okay, I now again believe that this thing can work?
It was August of 2018. So we started in February, and by March, my partner was out just myself. And so March through August, we struggled through the summer. We had just enough linear work to keep the crew busy. Sometimes they had a day or two off in between. And at that point, I was afraid of losing them to another company, because if you can't keep them, I'm not going to tell a guy don't take work.
Right.
Right. And so, but if you don't have work for them and they go work for somebody who's got stable work, you might not get them back. Mm-hmm. And so we stayed, just struggled through until August of 2018, and we had a big hailstorm. And it hit August 22nd, and I got a call from a friend of mine August 23rd, and he said, I think my roof is damaged. Can you come take a look? And I got out there, and within a week, we had 5 storm chasers here in Utah that were just canvassing the whole area. There were 8,000 homes that were hit. And so we probably did, I want to say, 200 or 300 of those homes.
Wow.
And we blew up from it. But it also taught me that you've got to be ready for an event that happens, because after that, we never had a storm chaser come in and catch us by surprise. We built our operation around, when there's an event, we hit the ground, we know exactly how to be able to reach homeowners, and we push local. Whether it's us or whether it's another roofing company, if somebody's coming in out of state, we want to be local. And so, but yeah, it was August of 2018 when we had that hailstorm, and by November we were just churning and burning.
That's crazy. So 6 months, right? Now, there's something that I've discovered in business and in life. It's like if you want success, you have to be willing to go through those difficult times, right? Because success doesn't just come. Like, success wants you to prove to it that this is something you actually want, right? Like, how many times were there between February and August, or March and August, where you're just like, don't want to do this anymore? Like, you wake up in the morning, you're stressed out, you're looking at the bank account, you're looking at the schedule, you're trying to find this, that. Like, how many times were you just like, I just want to quit?
I didn't have that.
Really?
I didn't even face it, man. No, I loved it. I live on pressure, man. It'll either crush you or make you a diamond. Mm-hmm. And so I loved it. I love the challenge. And I was never really good in school until I had a deadline. And then, and then last minute deadlines, I've always been able to perform in crunch time. And so for me, that was crunch time, and I was built for it. I loved it. And I didn't really think a lot of the big picture. And the way that I really got away from that is every single day, I'm going to find 4 roofs to put my feet on. I'm going to estimate 4 roofs today. And whatever it took, I was going to get out and get myself onto 4 roofs to estimate for the day. And so whether that was door knocking or hitting real estate or property managers or talking to the counties and cities, and like whatever it was, I had to be on 4 roofs for the day in order for this thing to work. And so my whole goal and focus was just 1 foot. I'm looking at my feet. I'm not looking at what's going on around me. I'm just focusing on what my effort needs to be right now. And I'm not thinking about if it fails, because I didn't allow that as an option. I don't think we can fail. I don't believe in failure. I believe that God's going to use a lesson to teach you something, or you're going to succeed at what you attempt to do. But out of it, I don't believe that there's a failure in that. I think that if this hadn't have worked, I wouldn't have seen it as a failure, because I was supposed to learn something from it.
Wow. I love that. And you kind of jumped into the next topic that I wanted to hit anyway, which is like, how do you actually grow a company, right? You can't just like close your eyes or post a picture on Facebook and you're like, hey, check out our new logo, check out our new business, we're open, come, give us a call. You have to actually have a specific plan. And then, as you said, execute it. How did you decide on 4 roofs? Like, when did that become the thing? Like, in order for us to succeed, it's 4 roofs, and you just put your head down and did that. How did that come about?
So I figured if the least closing ratio I had was 25%, which I was closing at about 60%, but if my lowest closing ratio was 25%, then I was going to get 1 roof a day. So like I've been in jobs where I've performed at 25% closing, and it's just that's my lowest. And so for me, if it would have been 10%, I would have been 10 roofs a day. I got to be on 10 roofs a day.
Because you got to get 1.
Yeah.
So that really was your goal, was 1 roof a day.
Yeah. Sold.
That's interesting because you actually knew what your closing rate was.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're watching this right now, pay attention, right? And going back to data and the numbers and understanding your numbers and then leveraging those numbers to get success, right? One of the things that I see when a contractor comes in, even if they are doing 7 figures, is they just don't know their numbers, right? I'm like, cool. So how many estimates do you need to do to hit that revenue target that you have? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, let's work it backwards, right? How many leads does it take to turn into one estimate? Then how many estimates does it take to turn into one sale, right? And it's breaking things down to the granular level that helps them, understand it, and then they can do something with it. I'm going to guess, I probably already know the answer, but I'm going to guess, was this something that you implemented from the beginning? Like you knew, if it's me and another guy, or if it's just me, either way, we need to close 1 roof a day. Oh
yeah. Yeah. It's science of sales. Like you said, working backwards. So we still do it. We do it every month with every one of our reps. How much do you want to make this month? Okay. So your average closing ratio is X. How many roofs do you need to get on? Which means how many estimates per day, which means how much income in your bank account at the end of the month. And so we start with how much they want to make that month, and then we work backwards based on their numbers, their closing ratios, how many leads that they need to have in, or how many presentations that they have to make. And it varies differently for each guy, but it's really important to work backwards that way, because you can't get someone's buy-in unless you do. If I say, well, don't you want to make 15 grand or 20 grand a month? You could do it here. And they say, well, yeah, that sounds great, but what are you going to do with it, right? So like just figuring out what people want to do with that, what they want to do with the funds that they bring in, and then work backwards through science of sales. And so, yeah, it was in 2005, 2006, I started really focusing on my own numbers. And I'm like, okay, if I want to make this much, how many calls, how many presentations, how many opportunities do I need?
Wow, I love that. Now, I want to hit a couple of things on that, the employee side, but I also want to hit the sales side. What book would you recommend that a contractor read that would help them understand sales?
Start with why.
Oh, Simon Sinek.
Yeah, I would say that first. And then extreme leadership or extreme ownership.
Jocko?
Yeah, that was another one that those 2 books really kind of changed my mindset. And then if you have the opportunity or create the opportunity, an expensive program is Bob Proctor, Thinking into Results. So before I started the company, as I was working for the prior company, I was going through this Thinking into Results mindset training, and Bob Proctor says that your income is not generated by the company that you work for. Your income is generated by you. So whoever pays you that income, it could be coming from customers or it could be coming from a company, but it's your efforts that generate that income. And that was just a light bulb for me, man. I'm like, oh, I don't have to fight through this process that I hate getting bad calls from. I can actually put this together and make my income come through the company that I establish.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. The first 2 I've heard of, the third one, I've heard of Bob Proctor, but I didn't know that program had such an impact on you.
Big time.
That's really cool. So I want to go back to employees, right? A lot of guys are in that employee turnover game, right? They're hiring for a pulse versus hiring for the next level or the next step in growth in their company. How was it for you, like when you started to hire people? I know where you're at now, but how was it when you hired a customer service rep, you hired your ops guy, but how was it for you to get these guys to have buy-in into your company? And how did you know they were the right person for the position?
Oh, that's hard. It's tough to be able to tell.
Yeah.
It's funny. Wednesday, I was looking at a photo of our team in 21, and I had 13 estimators, and I had a lot of support staff, and there were 34 people in this photo, and there are 7 of them at the company today out of 34. So that's a 20%, like 21% stick rate, right?
Yeah.
Like 79% attrition. And like I said, pressure either makes you perform your best or it'll drive you out. And I love the pressure of the business because it doesn't go away. And so, I was hiring for a pulse at that point, trying to bring anyone in who seemed like they would kind of fit. And I was getting a lot of quantity, but not quality. And so the people that have stuck around, like you can tell when somebody's heart goes out of what they're doing. Like when their heart's not in it anymore, they're not producing estimates. They're not like you see them at home in the middle of the day and those kind of things. And so I cut those things off fairly quickly when I see that happening. But you really can't tell. I always ask people what their 5-year and 10-year goals are, where they see themselves in 5 years. And I always look for people who want to do something different within 5 years. When I'm interviewing, I'm not thinking like, I've had people come in and say, I want to be in the company in 5 years. I'd like to be in management. Like that's not really who I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody that says, well, I want to take 3 or 4 years. I want to grow an income and then invest in real estate and move on with my life. Like that, to me, that shows that they've got the internal motivation and the kind of drive that is going to thrive in the company. And whether they're there for a year or 2, 3 years, making things really great while they're there, or they stick with you. I've got guys who are 4 and 5 years with me now. And they said initially that they wanted to be their own business owners and they wanted to have their own ventures by that time. And it seems like those people stick around and they have the biggest impact for us while they're there,
It's interesting. Would you say that has more to do with their internal motivation or with the culture that you've created?
Oh, definitely internal motivation. Our culture is wonderful. I mean, it's amazing, but it's not going to change you. And well, I think over time it does impact and kind of permeate some of the people that we've had. But for the most part, it's got to be the internal motivation. In my eyes, if you don't have that, you've got to find it somewhere, and if it's an external motivation, that's fleeting. That's going to pass and there are so many experiences that you can go through and like you're chasing an experience versus having within the drive to make it happen. So I think those people generally have more drive.
Yeah. Now, you may have the answer to this or not, but I love everything that you said. My question is, how do you find those guys as part of like your hiring process?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's usually they're referrals.
Oh, okay.
Usually employees refer people and they end up working out really well. I don't think that I have anybody on my team right now that, oh no, I have one lady on my team that I hired through a job service online. And she's a permit processor and she does a terrific job for us, but she's the only hire in the company that came through one of the hiring services. Everyone else has been either come in the door or a referral. Like my general manager walked in the door. He was working for another roofing company. He came in and was like, what is going on here? This is so much different than anything I've seen. And I just have some questions. I'm like, okay. So we sat and talked for 15 minutes. On a rare occasion, I'm in the office. And then the next week he came back and he was like, I want to apply. I'm like, oh man, he's been really amazing. He started as an estimator and worked his way up. But, most of them are referrals. People that seek us out or people that know someone who's looking for a job.
Do you incentivize any of your guys for those referrals to like actively look for them?
No, I haven't. I did pay a couple of sign-on bonuses that just went right out the door. So I haven't had a good experience paying people for referrals or sign-on bonuses, recruiters and things like that. I haven't had a good run with that. So I like natural, more organic referrals and people coming in the door because they want to be there.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. All right. I do want to get into this because you were talking about it before we started recording. You do something unique that not a lot of roofers either know or understand, right? But it wasn't something that just kind of fell in your lap, right? So we're going to talk about solar roofs, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of this intersection of solar companies and roofing companies. They're either the best of friends or they hate each other, right? You got solar companies, punching holes in roofs, and then the roofer's got to come back and repair it, right? Or vice versa. They're having the wars back and forth. You built your business with these partnerships with solar companies, right? But then you had this potential opportunity come across your desk, right? These Tesla solar roofs. So what was that process like?
Oh, we had, as a part of that hailstorm, I had one customer who was approved for a massive roof. I mean, $60,000 roof. And at the last minute, he said, "Oh, I'm going to hold off. I actually put my name in for a Tesla roof." And so, I mean, I didn't even know that they existed at that point. And so I started doing some research, looked at the Tesla website, sent an email to try and get in touch. There is no contact. There wasn't any phone number. I couldn't call someone. They're out in California and maybe show up at the location, But no, I sent an email in, and a year and a half later, they called me and they said, "Hey, so you look like a company that can help bring this product to market. We've got a request from you. It's been a while, but are you still interested?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm interested, actually." So that started a whole new journey for us. And we bought a training kit and went through all the details. Every Saturday for a year and a half, I brought my team in from 8 to 10 and sometimes 11 o'clock in the morning to do Tesla training online. And then we did the test builds and then did my house. But yeah, for a year and a half, all my estimators, some of my installers who were apt and wanted to learn something new, we were there studying Saturday mornings, and it took a lot of time. And I mean, of course, paying hourly for the guys to do that. But yeah, it was really neat to see it hit market, and bringing it in was exciting.
Now, you said earlier that the investment in this was north of $500K.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And you also said that there was a little kind of hesitation there, but talk about that, right? Because there really is a process with opportunity. And people talk about opportunity cost, but they're normally talking about opportunity cost in a negative aspect, right? What's it going to cost you not to do this thing, right? But this is an opportunity cost, no, to do the thing, right? And it was $500K. So what was that like?
Yeah. Well, like we were talking, I like your point of view that if you don't do it now, then, when are you going to do it? Or, where would you be if you hadn't have done that? Because I was saying earlier, if I had looked at this opportunity and said, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be a $500K rabbit hole, and we don't know if it's going to be successful or not," I don't know that I would have made that move at that point. And it's a really interesting prospect to think about that, because if we look back at it now, of course I would. But if I had known right then, hey, look, this is a commitment this large and this much time, would I have done that? Knowing Tesla and knowing the product now, I would do it, but there have been times where and my wife and CFO, if it was up to her, we wouldn't be doing it. We wouldn't have done it. Now she's happy about it. But, I had a lot of time in discussion with her about, okay, so do we keep this or do we not? Do we scrap this because it's not? I mean, it took probably 2 years to be able to start actually seeing an investment return on that. So, I mean, floating that for that long, I've gone back and I've told some of my other friends in roofing, if you're going to get into that, make sure you have a $2 million bankroll. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a $2 million bankroll, there are going to be sleepless nights and struggling, because, I mean, you're holding $200,000-$300,000 worth of product in your warehouse or on a roof, and you're waiting for a final inspection, or you're waiting for the bills to be paid and from customers, and sometimes they don't pay. And so we've experienced that too. But if you get into something like that, I would say have a really nice bankroll, or just be full bore and go at it, man. Because You know, we made it
Yeah.
happen.
Well, and like we say, hindsight's always 2020, right? But it's like you mentioned, you wouldn't be where you're at today if you wouldn't have done the thing, right?
True.
So it's kind of like, well, jumping out of an airplane. Well, yeah, you could sit there and watch videos and study about it and learn about, gravity and all these different things, but that's probably going to talk you out of it versus just like, hey, throw on the parachute. Obviously you have somebody that knows what they're doing, but throw on the parachute. Like you just got to jump. Right. And you're hoping and praying, but you got to trust the process that it's going to take you where you want to go. What's that like? So imagine you're talking to a newer contractor, and maybe not a roofer, it could be an electrician or a plumber or something like that. And there's an opportunity in front of them, but that opportunity is going to take a minute to pay out. It's going to take time. What would your advice be to them?
I would say to go for it, to differentiate yourself from your competition. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned earlier, there are more than 1,000 roofing companies in Utah, if you look at the registration rolls. And we're one of 3 that do Tesla solar shingles and the only one doing GAF energy shingles. And so I love new technology. I thought it was really awesome, but I looked around and saw nobody's doing this. And so if there's something in your industry that's new and groundbreaking and you can get yourself into it, I would say absolutely pursue it so that you can differentiate yourself from your competition. And you're going to stand out because of those things, and like I said, there have been a few times where we've looked back and wondered why we did those things. But yeah, man, if you have an opportunity to bring something new or something different in your industry, I would say, do some research, but go for it, man. Separate yourself from the rest of the people around you that are doing what you do, and you'll be a lot more memorable and a lot more wealthy for it.
I love that. All right. I want to kind of wrap this thing up, right? What would you say the biggest lesson you've learned in this experience as being a contractor, a roofing owner has been for you?
Oh man, that there are a lot of people that count on you. There are a lot of people that follow you. And if I'm doing the right things and I look back and I've got people that are following what I'm doing, then I believe I'm doing the right thing. In general, I follow God's leading as much as I possibly physically can as a man. And, we all slip up. We all have different things that we do. And, maybe you didn't handle an interaction great, but if you're doing what you like, if you find something that you're passionate about and what you believe in and you pursue that, then the right people will be drawn to you. I think that it really makes a big difference in just your end result. If you're just doing something for money, then that's not really that fulfilling, right? And so my takeaways, I want to enrich the people that work for me. My goal is to pay $8 million in wages this year. I'm not going to hit that, but I don't have revenue goals. I don't have income goals. My goals are to pay out to my team, because if I can pay out a huge amount like that, of course life's going to be taken care of. But if I can focus on taking care of the customers that we serve and giving the people in the company the license to be able to do that, like you said, it's a little bit tough to let go sometimes when you're in the thick of it. You want to get in and do everything yourself, but like giving people the freedom and the ability to take care of people and then sit back and watch it happen. It's actually really neat. And so being able to let go, being in the right place, focusing on the little nitty gritty details, just one foot in front of the other, and focusing on what I'm paying out. Those have been really my takeaways here.
Love it. That's awesome. That's a beautiful thing. And it speaks to who you are, right? You put people first, whether it's your customers or whether it's, your employees. And that's what I believe is why you're successful.
Thanks, man.
Beautiful thing. Okay. Last question. Here's the fun, unknown question. You got to start over. You got to hit the reset button. The only thing you're taking with you is your mindset and your skill set. And you got $1,000. That's it. What are you doing with that $1,000?
Oh, man. With $1,000 and what I know now. Kind of weird, man, but I would probably put it into Google AdWords or local service ads. If I were restarting a roofing company, and that's what I would naturally go to, but I would take that and I would use it to purchase opportunity to be able to sell more.
Right into sales.
I would. Well, real briefly on ad spend, what you put into your leads, what you put into your ad spend, you should be able to make 4 to 10 times whatever you put into your marketing. If there's marketing or if there's ad spend or if there's something that you're putting money into that's not giving you at least 4 times what you put into it, it's not a good marketing source. And we've really done well online and point of sale purchase. Roofing is a point of sale purchase. You can be on TV, you can be on billboards. Nobody's thinking about you until the roof is leaking. And that's when they go online and they look for roof repair and they find you. So yeah. If I had to do it all over again, man, I would have gotten into ad listings and maps more quickly and open more offices more quickly. And but yeah, I would put it into point of sale purchase, man.
That's awesome. I love it. You're the first one to say that.
Oh,
we've had some good answers, but that was the first time. So I love it. That's great. Well, again, I appreciate you making some time to be here and share your story with us. If you're watching this or if you're listening to this right now, I want you to take away a couple things, right? Number one is the growth of a business has less to do with you and more to do with your people, right? I think that's one of the most important things that you talked about. Are you going to grow in the process? 100%. Yes. The second thing though, is you got to be willing to take those chances. You got to be willing to take those risks and understand that it's not like Vegas, right? You're not going to like put $100 in and you get $500 back and you're like, woohoo, let's go. It's going to take some time, right? Just like a seed, you got to plant it, you got to water it, it's got to get some sun, you got to get the weeds out. It's going to take some time before that fruit appears. But if you have the patience, if you just keep showing up every day, guarantee it's going to work out for you. All right. You know what time it is though. It's time for you to get after it. 3, 2, 1, off you go. Thanks for listening to the Success Unleashed podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by liking, subscribing, and leaving us a review. Until we see you again, it's time to get after it. 3, 2, 1, off you go.